The evening air was heavy with the scent of rain, the kind of dampness that clung to clothes and made the city streets glisten beneath the flickering street lamps. David Carter adjusted the strap of his worn-out messenger bag on his shoulder and quickened his pace. His shoes were scuffed, his jacket frayed at the edges, but his eyes carried the steady determination of a man who had no choice but to keep moving forward. He was late, again. Late for the second shift at the diner where he worked, late to pick up his daughter from his neighbor, and late on rent that hung over his head like a storm cloud. Life had been a series of hard lessons for David, a poor single dad who had learned to make do with little and give everything he had to his little girl, Emily. She was 7, with a laugh that could brighten even the darkest corners of his day. She was the reason he kept pushing, the reason he swallowed his pride and accepted whatever job would keep a roof over their heads. But tonight, fate had different plans. As David turned the corner of the quiet street near the park, he heard voices carried by the wind. At first, he thought nothing of it, arguments in the city weren't uncommon, but then he heard the edge in the man's tone. It wasn't just anger, it was aggression. David slowed, his instincts tightening like a coil inside him. Across the street, near the dim glow of a cafe's outdoor lights, a woman stood with her back pressed against the wall, her arms crossed tightly in front of her as if shielding herself. In front of her loomed a man, tall, agitated, and leaning too close for comfort. His voice was sharp, almost venomous. "You can't just walk away from me, Claire," the man spat, his hands cutting the air with every word. "After everything I've done for you? You think you're better than me now?" The woman, Claire, kept her voice steady, though David could see the tension in her shoulders. "It's over, Marcus. I told you before, and I'll tell you again. You need to let me go." But Marcus didn't move. His jaw clenched, his body crowding hers like a storm pressing down. David's heart thudded. He didn't know this woman. He had no business stepping in. He was already running late, already struggling to keep his fragile life together. But something in her eyes, a flicker of fear beneath her composure, ignited a fire inside him. He thought of Emily. If his daughter were ever in that situation, wouldn't he pray for someone to help? He didn't think twice. David crossed the street, his footsteps firm, his voice louder than he felt. "Hey," he called out, his tone calm but unwavering. "Is everything okay here?" Both heads snapped toward him. Marcus's eyes narrowed, sizing David up, while Claire's widened slightly, a mix of surprise and relief washing over her features. "This doesn't concern you," Marcus barked, stepping slightly in front of Claire as if to block David's view. "Walk away, buddy." David swallowed hard but held his ground. He wasn't a fighter, and he didn't look like one, thin frame, tired eyes, clothes that screamed of a man who worked too hard for too little. But he had something Marcus didn't, resolve. "It looks like it concerns her," David said softly, his gaze fixed on Claire. "Miss, are you okay? Do you want me to call someone?" Claire's lips parted, and for the first time, she exhaled as though a lifeline had been thrown her way. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling just enough to betray her fear. That was all David needed. He stepped closer, deliberately positioning himself between them. Marcus bristled, his voice rising. "Back off. You don't know who you're messing with." David's pulse hammered, but he didn't flinch. "And you don't know who you're scaring. If she wants you to leave, then you should leave. Right now." For a tense moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The street lamp buzzed, the rain began to drizzle again, and David's heart raced in his chest. Marcus's fists clenched, and David braced himself for a blow he wasn't sure he could take. But then Marcus sneered, his pride outweighing his rage, "For now. You're not worth my time," Marcus muttered, stepping back. His glare burned holes in both of them before he turned and stalked off into the night. David exhaled slowly, realizing only then how tightly his muscles had locked. He turned to Claire, his voice gentler now. "Are you all right?" She looked at him, really looked at him, and something in her expression softened. "Yes," she said, her voice steadier this time. "Thanks to you." David smiled faintly, shifting awkwardly. Anyone would have done the same. But Claire knew better. She had seen enough people turn their heads, pretend not to notice, or walk away when things got uncomfortable. Yet here was a stranger, a man who looked like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, standing between her and the storm. "Can I buy you a coffee?" she asked, surprising even herself. David hesitated, glancing at his watch. He was late, but for some reason, he couldn't bring himself to say no. And that was the beginning of a story neither of them could have written themselves. Sparkles at this point, I would continue weaving their connection, conversations over coffee, Claire noticing David's humility, his devotion to his daughter, the struggles he never complains about. She hides the fact that she's a CEO, wanting him to see her as just a woman, not her title. Eventually, she visits his diner, meets his daughter, sees the depth of his kindness. David learns the truth in a heart-stopping moment when Marcus tries to return, but this time, Claire stands stronger, with David by her side. The story would climb toward 4,000 words, with moments of revelation, tender vulnerability, and a powerful ending where love triumphs over fear, and dignity outweighs wealth.